Hey guys, Kings here again, bringing you another unit video, and today we are going to be covering Imperial Pikes. Imperial Pikes are an extremely powerful unit, and they have been. We're in Season 10 right now, but they've been a very, very prominent unit for the last 2 or 3 seasons. They have a very, very high amount of damage, lots of uses when it comes to both territory war and your normal siege games. They're relatively cheap and they do a lot of damage. And as we're currently dealing with a lot of cavalry at the moment, they're a fantastic anti-cavalry unit, which we'll be going into in a lot of detail over the next 10 or so minutes. As always, if you have any additional questions, this is a quick guide, so we'll be covering as much as we can, but we're trying to break this down into 10-minute chunks. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to either drop a comment on the video or come over to the Athena Discord or onto my Twitch channel, which I'll show at the end, and I'll happily answer any questions. Okay, so let's look at Imperial Pikes. So opening up the barracks, let's scroll along to Imperial Pikes. Let's open this up. And in Elite Imperial Pikemen we have here. So at the top, we've got the level, a max level of 18. We have a leadership of 240, 28 men in the unit. Start with veterancy. So we click on here. We've got 2 different lines here. The bottom one, let's just explore that one first. So we've got toughen up. So the first one here is just a bit of increased damage, and then basically defense and some defense, increases piercing defense by 3%. Okay, so hardness. Unit cannot be stunned by ordinary attacks while bracing. Very useful. We'll cover that in a comparison to the other line in a second. And then we got some basic defenses here: increased damage, less damage taken, etc. Bit of extra health, and then increased all types of defense by 20%. Also changes their unit appearance to look like the below, or what you see on your screen. Very good, very good. It just basically here increasing the tank of the unit, which is quite nice. On the top line though, however, we have increased damage, a bit more. So we have cannot be stunned by ordinary attacks while advancing. So we're going to cover some of the abilities in a minute of the Imperial Pikes. And this is very useful indeed. So we've been comparing the two. This is much more of a defensive lineup. This is much more of an aggressive kind of pushing veterancy line here. Again, more damage, or different types of damage increase. And then we have long reach. Increases the number of enemies each soldier can attack with a single strike by 1. So in effect, in basic terms, what that's saying is every time this unit or a man in this unit strikes an enemy, it can also hit a second with the same strike. So basically every hit they're hitting 2 units with 1 hit. Very, very useful when you combine that with some of their abilities, which we'll cover shortly. Quick look at the stats. Good health, some fair damage. So we've got 1,880 penetration, which is quite high. And then we have no slashing damage whatsoever, but we have some high piercing damage. So 1,189 piercing damage, and then a bit of blunt damage. I'm not massively sure where the blunt damage comes from in this unit, but they have some blunt damage nonetheless. And then finally, we've got a bit of basic average defense. Nothing too crazy and nothing too low, so fairly average. So let's get into the skills. So relentless. What this basically means is they can hold their unit formation while pushing. So advancing can deal heavy damage to enemies along the way. This unit is skilled in maintaining its formation and pushing through enemy lines. Very good. Swamp increases damage against cavalry by 16% and reduces the attacked cavalry unit speed by 60% for 2 seconds. Very useful, and we'll cover this in a minute. I will say now that the Imperial Pikemen are extremely good at anti-cavalry. They're an anti-cavalry unit. They're very good at dealing with cavalry, but they're not the best in the world against infantry. So they're a very strong kind of defensive unit and attacking unit in the right situation. They primarily counter cavalry, but can do a lot of damage in support of other infantry units in an infantry fight. We'll cover that in gameplay shortly. Heavily armoured. The unit wears heavy armour, makes them difficult to harm, so they have some increased defence and increased defences against all sorts of attacks. And then insulated. So the unit is difficult to set on fire and takes less damage from fire when ablaze. I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory. They just don't get burnt too badly when they get set on fire. And then finally, a bit of a negative one here, sluggish. The unit takes time to change direction and build up to its full speed. It also means it's very slow. So it's not the fastest unit in the world, and generally, you know, just more of the slower unit in the game. So let's look at some of the actual abilities themselves. So the first one we have our standard brace. Won't go into the details. They basically brace their spears for an incoming attack. We have advance. So the soldiers advance to their designated position. Now this isn't a very good description of what this ability does, and you'll see this ability in full form in a minute. But what it immediately does is all of your unit raise their pikes forward, and they start to move forward in a direction of your choosing and hit anything and stun anything as they kind of go through. This ability will knock back enemies. And we have a final ability here called charge. And this doesn't come standard with the unit. This is a doctrine that you can add on to this unit, which enables them to have a charge, and we'll show that now. Before we do that though, let's just have a quick look at the formations here. We have our circle formation here, we have our line formation, and we have our disperse formation. Good against anti-ranged, great for lining up and preparing for a charge, and very good at surrounding everywhere. So having a 360-degree defense if you're holding a point or you're on your own and you're not sure where your attack's going to come from. This is also a very good way of lining up your unit or the formation to use before you do your advance, because some of the back ones will continue knocking down enemies as they go through. Again, we'll cover that in gameplay. So let's just drop back, let's go back to our Imperial Pikes. Let's have a quick look at the doctrines. So people build these in different ways, but there's a variety of different ones you could use. For myself, however, let's start at the top. So we've got our anti-cavalry doctrine, which is this one here. Increases damage against cavalry by 120. Now, as I mentioned, it's going to be an anti-cavalry unit. So this is a very good doctrine to have. Increased damage dealt to units. Now you could swap this out for perhaps something like this, which is the rare polearm doctrine, increasing bracing damage by 100. But based on how you're going to use this unit, you might just want to have that extra damage to units. Bracing weapons stuns enemies. Very, very useful against cavalry, very useful against infantry. Allows the unit to charge, so this is the doctrine I was talking about. It gives them an extra ability. And then finally, increased, so we've got Epic Polearm Doctrine 1, increased piercing damage by 80, and increased piercing armor penetration by 120. So all in all, gives us some additional abilities. It gives us extra damage. It gives us an extra few kind of side abilities like bracing and stunning, and so on and so forth. So let's get into a bit of gameplay and see how these guys work. Okay guys, so in Pikes, we've got a variety of different abilities here. So the first one is Brace, which you see here, commonly outside a gate, waiting for any cav coming out. Basically when they're in Brace, they do extra damage. And they also stun if you have the relevant veterancy line. Advance, so the Advance ability is very, very simple. It simply advances the Pikes forward, hitting anything that it comes in contact with. Very, very simple. And we'll see that in a second with a bit of live gameplay. And the final ability, which is the Doctrine ability, is Charge, which pretty much does what it says on the tin. The unit will charge to destination that you select and do damage on the way en route. So, in this clip, we've pulled out our Impikes. We can see some cavalry knocking about. And as I've said, Impikes are very, very good at dealing with cavalry. So we're approaching this point, we're going to try and catch some cavalry out. And at this point, it's not worth using any of the abilities. So we're just hitting V, getting them to attack, killing off some cavalry, taking a little bit of damage, but nothing too much. And as you can see, the cav turn around there, and I'm going to charge this time. Rather than advance, because we had that big blockade in the way, we're going to use the charge ability instead. In this clip, instead, they're all blocked up, and we're going to use advance. And this time you can see all the numbers coming up, all of the enemy units getting knocked down. Unfortunately, I don't really have any backup here, so the unit's pretty much going to go straight away. In this clip, we have the backup. We have Iron Reapers here. So instead of going directly at them, what we're going to do is we're going to try and cut through the centre of the unit pack, knock over the shields, break up the medalls there, and you can see in the centre of those, we've got loads of other units, specifically Iron Reapers there, doing some damage. In this clip, we've got some another infantry battle here. And we're going to pull our we see Iron Reapers, we're going to lose those. So we're pulling away our Imp Pikes and we're just waiting for our other units to advance. We're going to charge in. As you can see, our advance is actually on cooldown. And we're going to do additional damage there with the Imp Pikes with the charge. And as soon as our advance comes available, we're going to then advance into the enemy, knocking them over, allowing our other units to pretty much mop up and break the unit while they're on the floor. So overall, the Imp Pikes are a really, really good, versatile unit for standard play. They're very, very good for anti-cavalry. We didn't see too many clips of the anti-cav there, but generally you can imagine what kind of damage these pikes will do, whether they're in brace or whether they're advancing into a unit of cav. Most importantly, they stun a lot of the things that they advance into. So the final thing really is they're a fantastic unit for territory war because, as you've seen through those clips, they are very, very good at supporting other infantry classes in dealing with large volumes of enemies, especially if they're higher tier, like Iron Reapers. Imp Pikes can knock them over and allow other units to deal with them. And that's pretty much it. Again, basic guide, there's lots of other things that you can cover with this unit, but hopefully this gives you an overview and an understanding on the basics of how to use Imp Pikes and how to set them up. As always, any questions, please come over to the Discord, come into the stream or leave a comment on this video, and I'll help however I can. Apart from that, that's it from me. Thanks. Bye.